Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special segment of the SWW show. It's another interview. It's me, AJ. I have got Pedro here from Novity VR Studio, makers of Rags to Dishes, potentially one of the best plays on the Rags to Riches. I don't even know what phrase, I guess.
Yeah, I guess it is a phrase. It's a
Yeah,
play
I was
on
I
words.
was trying to think it's not necessarily a play on words in the traditional sense. It's a like that rags to riches is a phrase or an idea, not it's not like you're taking the exact word and like a double innuendo, you're kind of playing off of an established. I'm sure there's some like literary or whatever name for what that is.
It probably is.
I
I'm not
I
sure
hated
offhand,
my
but
language classes, so we're just gonna go with it's a play on words. Um, for those that don't know what Rags to Dishes is, Pedro, do you mind explaining kind of what the game is?
yes, of course. Okay, Racks to Dishes is a VR cooking game. So it's not a simulator, if you will. It's a game where you have to make food and prepare orders, but the focus is on you delivering the orders as fast as you can. Customers will get increasingly impatient, so you have to make sure that everyone's happy, whether you're delivering bread or oatmeal or even just a cup of water. The focus is to just try to make everything as fast as you possibly can, so that you get the most amount of money as possible. And within the game, the main campaign, like AJ said, um, we did have a play on words, so racks to dishes, and the objective is for you to start cooking off for the peasants, and then eventually, as you become better and better, you end up cooking for the royal family, and if you're good enough, then you'll be considered the best chef in the land. So that's racks to dishes. It's out now for everyone to play.
So this is like from what I've seen about this game, it's like the almost the perfect combination of like an overcooked mixed with cook serve delicious, where it's kind of the station work of an overcooked, but it's also the rapid pace of the cook serve delicious games. And I have to
Mm.
say, if that's what you guys are going for, like those are the two bits from those games that if somebody was going to make a game taking bits from those two specifically, like those are the two that definitely are the ones to hit. And tell you what, it looks like you guys really nailed it.
Thank you very much for that. We were definitely going for the hecticness of Overcooked. I must say that our game is single player, so we don't have a co-op or even a multiplayer game mode. So I guess it differs from Overcooked in that sense, but we were definitely going for the hecticness. In terms of the game itself, it's obviously not the first VR cooking game out there. So I must give a shout out to some of the games that influenced Rack to Dishes, and they were the VR Diner Duo, the Cooking Game VR, Counterfight, and Batter Up VR, to name a few.
Well, yeah, that's VR cooking is definitely a genre that I have completely looked over. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I mean, I'm not that great of a cook anyways, so cooking in games for me is kind of a I don't know if release is the right word, but like an escape. Like hey, I just have to watch this meter go up instead of, you know, guessing if this is cooked all the way through.
Um, yes, I mean, is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing if you've not tried VR cooking games before? I guess it would be a good thing for us. You can try Racks of Dishes, so that would be your first experience of a VR cooking game. But like I said, it's not proper work. It's not proper cooking. We didn't really try to go for the simulator type of game. So it's more definitely the focus is on trying to get orders out of the kitchen as soon as possible, and we've introduced a fun element to it as well. So I don't think you'd find it too demanding, I feel.
Just getting the orders out. Sounds like all of my local restaurants. Like nobody really cares what the quality is, just as long as you get it out.
Well, you're able to burn some of the food in the game, and the customers will still take the order. So I guess that is possible, but they will give you less money for it.
If only that's how it worked in real life. Like, oh, this dish is a little overdone or it's a little underdone. Hey, I'm taking X off my bill instead of no, you're going to pay what it says and you're going to like it.
Our customers are a little bit more forgiving than that, so hopefully that does come across.
That's the nice thing, right? Like games games that capture the true reality of life in a way are kind of boring. I think anybody will attest to that. Where you go to games as a release, not to continue whatever you're doing on a daily basis. I think the only people group that would disagree with that are the people that are super diehard truck simulator players,
Hmm.
because from what I've heard, there are quite a few of them that are actual truckers in real life. So they get done with their job and then go immediately play a game that is their job.
Hmm.
And I'm like they're fun games, but it's like, man, sometimes you just want to, you just want to run around in an open world and screw around, or you just want to spend the night in VR cooking meals for medieval times people, or I don't want it to be, I don't want a game to be what I see on a daily basis.
No, exactly, and that's a really good point. You have truck simulators, you have driving simulators, you have flight simulators. And they do have an audience, and people love them. With Racks to Dishes, we try to strike a balance between a full-on cooking simulator and a fun game. And I think at the end of the day, we wanted to focus on simple and fun mechanics that people would be happy to do over and over and over again for an hour, 2 hours, whatever length they would like to play for. But just to give you an example, in the game we have different set of recipes. So one of them is oatmeal. Initially, we thought, well, surely to make oatmeal, you take some water, add it to a pan. You take some oats, add it to a pan, let it cook, and then collect it with a bowl. But as we were trying that, it felt like it was way too passive for it to be any fun. So we thought, okay, what could be a cool variation on this? So then we added this spoon, and you have to mix. So right now, the way the oatmeal works is you have to add water, oats, and then you have to mix it. And whenever you finish mixing, then you serve it. So we felt like that was a good compromise, and we tried to take that approach to every single recipe in the game so that it wasn't too simple to the point where it's just an assembly game, but we didn't want to go on full simulator.
Well, it sounds like there's definitely the viability there to screw it up or get it just right. Um, and you mentioned that there is a campaign. Is there a like once you're done with the campaign? Is there much more to do? Is there? I mean, there's you said there's no multiplayer, so is there a reason to come back?
There is. So when we first started developing Racks to Dishes 2 years ago, our main goal was to take the best of VR, which at the time were these really simple but effective games that you could keep playing over and over again. So, for example, Job Simulator, Super Hot VR, but at the same time, make sure that there was an engaging story that you could dedicate yourself to. And so the game has two main game modes. So it has the campaign, as you mentioned, and that will take you roughly 6 hours to complete. And then we have a 5 minute mode. And the 5 minute mode is available for the three levels of the campaign. So those three levels are the peasants, the nobles, and the royals. And the 5 minute mode, like the name indicates, you have 5 minutes to cook as fast as you can, deliver as many orders as you possibly can, and at the end, you get a high score. So in the game, currently we have local leaderboards, so you're encouraged to try to get the high score. But right now, we're working on a major update that's going to come midway through December. That's going to have some online leaderboards, so we get some competition going.
Yeah, I feel like there's something to be said about local leaderboards, but when it's just you or it's I guess VR games are a little harder to be like, hey, roommate, come play this. Like, at least with a normal, a quote unquote normal game, it's a little easier to hand somebody a controller, like an Xbox controller or a PlayStation controller, and be like, here, just mess around in this. Whereas VR is like, okay, we gotta get you centered, get the headset on, fit it right, like get your eyes right. Um, so so local leaderboards in a VR game are kind of like, well, you're trying to best yourself, which some people like, but and to a certain extent, I like okay, I did this, I know I can improve here, but then it's like, okay, I feel like I've maxed out, and then with the online leaderboards, having that extra to strive to is definitely a plus. I feel like.
Yes, the game's been out for 2 weeks, and that's definitely at the top of the players' requests in terms of getting an online leaderboard. Like you said, especially with VR, it is a little bit tricky to jump in and out if you have a group of friends around. But in the actual game, we did try to set up a challenge for the players. So there are some default scores that you can try to beat. But to be completely honest, the idea from the start was always to have online leaderboards. We just couldn't get it ready for launch, but we're working on it right now. And like I said, in about 3-4 weeks, the game will have a major update that will allow players to compete with each other online.
Well, I'll definitely be looking forward to that update once I can see people around the world and realize that some of them are way better at games than I am. Sometimes it's good to be humbled by worldwide leaderboards. Um, but yeah, I will definitely be looking forward to the progression of Rags to Dishes throughout, as it appears to be. It's one of those games that it looks like it's going to be a very fun okay, I don't have anything to do tonight. I'm just going to get lost in VR and playing a game or two. This feels like this could easily join the rotation of the VR games I get lost to.
We certainly hope so. When we thought of a cooking game as well, it was funny because the way we came to that decision was through a team vote basically. So we tried a bunch of games at the beginning, and my personal preference was always the action-packed shooting kind of games. But it was very apparent that in terms of our overall team preference, all liked cooking games, and we all felt like it was a very accessible genre of game. And if done well, like you said, it could join the rotation in terms of games people pick up when they first buy a headset, or games people pick up when they get home after work and they just want to relax for a little bit and play a VR game.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that the an action style game was one that you were thinking of. I feel like VR, with it being kind of, it's still pretty young in terms of kind of overall public adoption. So there's very few, it feels like, genres in VR. Like there's the okay, it's the shooting game. You know, you're either stationary or mobile, um, or like teleporting around. There's the your controllers are now swords games. So you just get to swing your hands around. You know, there's not a lot of outside of that and like VR implementation for vehicle based games. It feels like there's not much. Like there, as you mentioned, there are a few cooking games, but I mean, as somebody that has VR and has had VR for a while, it always felt like when I was hearing about new VR games, it was, oh, it's another on-rail shooter, or it's another hack and slash style game, or it's a driving game or something like that. So the ones that stuck out, the ones that weren't those, are at least to me kind of like the ones that you want to point people to. They're like, hey, I just got a headset. Um, what do you recommend? And I recommend, kind of things that are off the wall. Like the one that I'm recommending now is Half-Life Alyx because I'm finally playing that. But, there's some others out there. Like it's, this is definitely, at least short of the game just not working, which it doesn't appear to have that issue. Rags to Dishes is going to join that list of like, hey, I just got into VR. What are a few of these things that I should look into?
We certainly hope so. That was one of our goals from the very start. And just talking about games in general, I feel this year has been very strong. So you mentioned Half-Life Alyx. That's one of the biggest games in VR ever, pretty much. I still haven't tried that one, sadly enough. I've been busy with Racks to Dishes, but that's definitely at the top of my list of games to try. But Iron Man VR, it came out for the PlayStation VR as well, and that looks really cool as well. Recently, we've had Star Wars Tales from the Galaxy, and the reviews seem to be positive. But slowly but surely, the VR games are becoming bigger, are becoming more ambitious, and hopefully it keeps going that way.
Yeah, I was gonna like VR really needed that one, and it appears that Alex is going to be that game. It needed that one thing to kind of like gather attention around. Like Fortnite did it for battle royales, right? So it's like now everybody's making a battle royale. It brought attention to a genre that has been massively overlooked, and any eyeballs that VR gets outside of the super hardcore dedicated um, PC or PlayStation user base, it's it helps the medium as a whole move forward and get to become a viable option and not just like, you know, the when the Vive first came out, it's like, man, I really don't know if somebody's making a VR only game and
Mm-hmm.
they're not a major studio. I just don't know how you survive because it's a super high barrier to entry,
Mm-hmm.
and you know it's slowly chugging along. And now with Alex being up for several publications game of the year,
Mm-hmm.
and the only way you can experience that is in VR.
Mm-hmm.
Once people get into that system, they're like, okay, I need something else. And so they start looking to games that they would like. And it's very fun to see. And I'm sure as you guys as a VR studio, seeing something like Alex come out, it's like, yes, that's exactly what this industry needed. It needed a super big player to come in and kind of throw their weight behind this
Mm-hmm.
technology that, I mean, still to a vast majority of people is this foreign, like completely unknown realm.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's interesting because 2 years ago, um, the I mean, the VR industry was getting bigger and bigger, but still it was fairly small. You had the enthusiasts, and like you said, you needed to get a Vive, for example, or an Oculus Rift, and that's why that has quite a high barrier to entry. And right now, with all these games coming out, obviously Alex as the flagship, if you will. And then you also have some standalone headsets as well, which have dropped the prices and allowed you to just, instead of having a fully kitted out PC that costs you potentially thousands of pounds, plus a proper dedicated VR space. Now you can just and obviously the Oculus Quest 2 does have some controversy around it, requiring players to have Facebook accounts and whatnot. But regardless, I feel like that's where the majority of new VR users are starting to experience VR is through that headset. But I feel like there's still a long way to go in terms of VR. Generally speaking, most of my friends have not tried VR, and obviously that needs to change. But it's going to change with the headsets getting cheaper, more accessible, and with more and more games coming out. And even speaking of games, for example, we had a situation where there is another cooking game called Cookout, and it came out in September, I believe. And at the time, everyone kept asking, so are you guys nervous? This is real competition now. And our mentality has always been, well, look, a rising tide lifts all boats. And if there's someone interested in another cooking game, maybe that'll be, their initial contact with the genre. And when ours comes out, they'll be more receptive to try ours. And so I'm really glad that there are more and more games coming out and that there are more and more people trying VR.
Well, Pedro, I am very uh, hopeful and very much looking forward to the hopeful success of Rags to Dishes. I can see the pun headlines now of Rags to Dishes, you know, going from rags to riches like that. Like I can see that headline writing itself.
We hope so. We hope so.
Yeah. It was very very fun talking to you, and thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. It was great fun. Thank you very much for having me on, and it's been a pleasure, AJ.
This episode is partially brought to you by the Humble Choice program. Did you know Humble Bundle has a great monthly subscription service that lets you get a ton of video games every single month? That's right, from plans range from $5 to $20 a month, you get a hold of a bunch of free games they have available to you. And you could use our code down in the description below to go and sign up. It would help our podcast and help you see what great games are available for you this month.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another one of these fun interview edition episodes of the SWW show. I'm Mike, and today with me a guest from, I guess, all the way around the world. Jesus, I hate time zones and long distance and figuring all of this out. Anyway, I have with me Dan from, is it Phase 2 Games? Is it PTY?
Oh, it's just Phase 2 Games, yeah.
From Phase 2 Games to talk about Battle Hunters. First off, Dan, how are you doing? Is it morning for you, night? I'm not fully sure.
It is 9 a.m. in the morning, so it's all good. It's a beautiful sunny day in Melbourne, Australia, so everything is good at the moment. We're still, in a form of lockdown here at the moment, though, so that's not great, but we're getting by.
I have to ask the immediate dumb question: Is Melbourne, when it's not on fire, ever not sunny?
Well, I can correct you on both counts. The fires are wildly exaggerated overseas. This has been something that I've found quite interesting the last couple of years. Melbourne itself is never on fire, and Melbourne is really, really seasonal as a city. It's very much like, I would sort of compare it to a slightly warmer version of London or something, in the sense that we get really hot summers, but we get a lot of rain, a lot of cold in winter, and we get everything in between. So I like it. I think it's fantastic here.
So legitimately, I've heard this before. When everyone in Australia tells me they have winter, I just tend to not guttily believe them, because I'm currently in Minnesota, which I don't know if you know what that is. I am like 5 hours south of the Canadian border right now. So like to me, I'm like, we don't know what winter is. I promise. Like.
Yeah, no, look, I think that's fair. In fact, now that I think about it in those terms, what we call winter, yeah, you would probably call a sort of fairly comfortable day. Like it never gets really below 1 degree Celsius, really. So yeah,
That's still a cool day. Fair, it's just like, to me, that's like late fall. That's not like dead of winter. Dead of winter to me would be like,
yeah.
If I do math right, I think it'd be like -5 or 6 Celsius. Like it'd be some like absurd. Like,
yeah, okay, that's
lower.
fair. and to make the point more clearly, I guess I should point out that like in Melbourne, like it never snows. So I guess there's a baseline for you. Like it snows up in the mountains, but that's like right out in the country. But yeah, okay, fair play. So it's pretty. I guess it's pretty comfortable most of the time. But we do get, we get like 42-degree days. I don't know. I can't remember what that is in Fahrenheit, but
it's
like,
something.
I don't know,
yeah, it's 42.
Well over 100.
Oh, yeah. I promise you, it is well over 42. So for an American audience, Jesus Christ, it's 107 degrees. Which you've heard like Florida being the scary place in America. That place that brings 100 people are dying. Like that's the level we're talking here.
Right. Okay. Well, there you go. So yeah. But in the north, because Australia is huge, in the north of Australia, like up in Queensland and stuff, it gets much worse. And it's like hot all the time. So I think it's unbearable to live up there. But no, Melbourne's cool, and Melbourne's kind of really, it's sort of culturally really good. Lots of great bars and restaurants and nightlife and all. Well, we used to before lockdown, but anyway, we should probably move on.
Perfect. I always appreciate talking to other countries. So yeah, so we're going to talk about Battle Hunters.
Yeah.
To start us out then, what would if someone asked you what is Battle Hunters? What would you call it?
This is the elevator pitch conversation, right? Like I always find these hard. I would say it is a classic style RPG inspired by console RPGs of the sort of mid '90s, early 2000s. That has a kind of unique real-time tactical combat system. That's kind of my shortest version possible, I think.
So I think so. You were kind enough to give us codes for Battle Hunters for us to be able to try it out and all that fun stuff. And I think it's a fair comparison. 'Cause I think I was reading you comparing it to that before. The thing that stuck out to me, I think it's No More Heroes. There was a Switch RPG that was turn-based and it was lane-based, but it definitely gave me like very similar vibes. So to kind of get us started,
Oh, okay.
what other specific kind of like RPGs or games kind of by name do you think of that like you might know that you think really influence kind of as you're going through being like these are the pieces kind of like this game and this game and this game?
Well, I mean, to be honest, like it's like Battle Hunters evolved over sort of many years, really. So we kind of started with a really simple premise. We sort of, so it's not like we necessarily took elements or direct inspiration from existing games. Like, like I'll give you an example. Like there's a game, like I'm guessing you might be a little bit too young for this. I don't know, but like there's a game called Grandia on. It was on Dreamcast and PlayStation 2, and Grandia 2 in particular, and this is going back, I think Grandia is about 1998 or something like that. It had what I thought was at the time the best RPG combat system I'd ever seen, because it kind of blended this notion of taking turns but kept the action alive and flowing. And so we wanted to do something like that, but not exactly the same. So, we kind of took really broad inspiration from a lot of games in the sense of like high level goals. Like we don't want it to be turn based like Final Fantasy. We want it to be strategic in the sense that you get to make decisions with your characters, but we don't want it to be sort of slow and stilted in how you do that. So I get like that. That's kind of how we took inspiration, more from a very high level, but also like from the sort of art and presentation style. Like I've always just liked that sort of era, where characters were caught more on the cartoony side, sort of colourful, lighter in tone, not so earnest and taking itself so seriously. So again, it was like I wasn't sort of necessarily looking at a particular style from another game, but more like more a sensibility and a tone. Does that kind of help?
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I like to when I was playing it, I think it reminded me of like if I took the idea of Fire Emblem characters but made them more cartoony. Is kind of like the way
Right.
it like guttily felt to me. And obviously,
Sure.
you change the combat and movement a bit on there too, because it's not this pure tactical thing. But I think that to me felt it was probably the closest guttural thing feeling that way. Um, Going through it, I think one of the big selling points you guys doing and playing it was you seem to have a lot of this combat system. I think is one of the things that really stood out to me. I'm curious, kind of, because an immediate critique I might give, being like it's not only it's a game big, I think it just took me longer to get used to than I would have thought it would have, is how much I could do in that combat system, especially when I'm dealing with a lot of characters.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, can you say you dropped out a little bit there?
Yeah,
Can
no
you just
problem.
repeat that?
So I was just saying, so like that combat system, for example,
Yep.
there's a lot there. I feel like and I feel like it just surprised me how much I could do, especially given the amount of characters I control at one time, especially in like the early parts of the game when it's like, okay, now you have 3 characters and you could do like 5 things. And I'm like, oh, and I only have so long to decide.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that kind of, again, the game sort of evolved in the sense that, believe it or not, we started out, and in hindsight, it was really stupid. We started out with this kind of simpler idea, like you were going to play more of a sort of coach, and your characters would be much more autonomous, and there was less for the player to do. And we found that it was just not an engaging experience, and we felt there was an opportunity to give the player like more choices, more involvement, more direct control, and we could just kind of scale that over time to the point where, we ended up. You can do all these neat things and interrupt the sort of flow of battle at any time and set them to defend or move to a different space or whatever. We were really trying to find the ideal balance. And I think the thing, and this is the danger of being a games developer, especially when there's only two of you in the team. You spend so much time intensely playing the game, you want to make it more engaging and sort of more exciting for yourself, kind of forgetting that your familiarity and skill with the game is constantly increasing. And it's not like someone who's playing it for the first time. So, yeah, look, it may be that players do take a while to get used to how it works and you know and all the options you have and making decisions quickly. And when the battles get frantic towards the end of the game, it gets quite manic. Like you've really got to stay on top of what you're doing, otherwise you just get wasted. And yeah, look, maybe the balance isn't perfect, but you know, game development's more of an art, not a science, right? So it's you just do your best, really.
You just put it into the computer, you hit a button, and whatever number pops out, that's correct. Are you telling me that's not correct?
Sorry, when you
I've heard you just put it and you put the number in the Excel sheet and just use that number. It's perfect.
Oh yeah,
it's
no, absolutely,
equally.
yeah.
There's
Yeah,
no
it's as simple as
subjectivity.
that, and then you get yourself a smash hit and you make millions of dollars. It's easy.
Gene, I'm seeing this. We have solved game development. We have made it easier for everyone from this point forward. Who's got to sell that Excel sheet?
Yeah, no, if only. It's so far from that, and you know, like I used to work for bigger studios, and going back to a very, very small team, you know, you kind of forget the complexities involved in the whole process. Not just developing the game itself, but everything about it, like trying to market it, trying to connect with people, and all sorts of things. It's crazy. But anyway, if only there was a formula, Mike, I'd love it.
So, kind of then, I think, and this is not like I think you guys are isolated. I think it's a very common thing with a lot of games, especially with complex or harder systems. Kind of onboarding people is really hard because obviously the fun isn't for a lot of these games isn't until I mastered all of them and now I can start balancing them back and forth. I'm curious,
Yep.
kind of as you've gone over development. I'm almost assuming, correct me if I'm wrong, the game used to be harder and you've changed it, or has this always kind of been like the balance difficulty kind of what you thought it'd be at?
Yeah, look, it's really hard to say because also like the game, the difficulty of the game changes a lot as you move through it. Like it certainly starts a lot easier than it was at one point, but like I imagine if you've only played it for a couple of hours, you're probably only into the forest level, right? And yeah. So as you get towards the end of the game, like what we've tried to do, and again, you know, this is really difficult stuff because you know you're also dealing with a complete spectrum of skill sets on the other side. You know, like so it's not like if you balance a game for like the perfect gamer subject, you've done your job. It's like everyone's got different skills. Anyway, we've tried to create an experience that eases you into it, and towards the end of the game, you know, you really, you know, you sort of do things instinctively, like all the best games. You know, the things that are difficult at first become second nature later on. But look, I don't know. So I would say, yeah, the early part of the game is easier than it initially was. But we've kind of flipped that by the time you get to the end of the game. Some of the battles, like if you don't pay attention, you'll get killed in about, I don't know, about 10 seconds. All your guys will be wiped out. So it gets really kind of ruthless. But you know, I wanted to maintain that aspect that like it's got to be hard. Like satisfying experiences only emerge when there's tension, you know, created by a challenge for the player. So we had to have that in it as well. So I honestly don't know. I've completely lost my sense of how difficult it is now. I can't tell you.
I can only imagine early game, you probably sit there and you're just like, well, you just sit there and just go boom, 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 boom. Oh, I beat the game. What happened?
Yeah.
So one of the other things that is one of the big things of this game is, and I think it really matches what you're talking about, how like you want to look at the 90s, early 2000s RPGs before we cared about graphics and the highest fidelity. Instead, they're like what this gameplay is. You have a decent amount of classes, especially for how small your team is. Obviously to start the player out, you start out with the mage, the knight, the archer, kind of like good onboarding classes. I was curious if you could talk about like one or two like later classes that like you think are really unique or something you're really proud of in this game.
Yeah. Okay. Well, like, I mean that's a really good question. I mean this is the other thing as well. Like we kind of wanted to subvert a lot of tropes as well. So, it's a little bit of a, what do you call it, a sort of bait and switch, I guess, in that we start out with these really, as you say, well-established kind of touchstones that people can relate to immediately, especially if you're an RPG fan. So, we give you the classics and everyone's like, oh, okay, this is how the game's going to work. But I think as you go through the game, you sort of realize that, I mean, classes, it's an interesting word. Like we sort of really only have three, sort of, but then in another way, every character is their own class. Like there sort of isn't classes as well, because certain characters that would fit into, say, that. So strictly speaking, we have melee, we have magic, and we have ranged, obviously. But there are characters that kind of sort of cross over in some ways as well, like melee characters that have ranged moves, and ranged characters that can do things that mage characters can do. And so we just thought, why stick to really sort of strict delineation when there's no need to, and it can just make the game more fun. So that's kind of, I don't know, that's kind of a comment on the class thing, I guess. It's much more malleable than it might first seem. But in terms of characters that I'm really proud of, like look, ones that leap to mind, there's a character called the Mecha Marine later in the game. You sort of meet him early on, and he's like a sci-fi soldier in like a robotic exosuit, and he's kind of crashed, and you meet him and you have to find his power source to bring him back. And he's the sort of character that like everybody loves, because he's just got that classic appeal. Like he's huge, and he's got cannons that fold out of his arms, and he carries like a massive pulse rifle, and so he's really cool. He's got a good range of kind of defensive and offensive stuff. And look, I don't want to give too much away, but there's characters that really subvert the sort of world, and we kind of create a kind of flimsy pretext for how that works. But like there's a cowboy in it as well from the Old West, and he's kind of really interesting because of the way his fire rate works, and like things like he starts off appearing to be quite weak, but if you stick with him and you upgrade the right things, he becomes like a really dangerous hero. So we've also done that as well. Like if you take the time to get to know each hero or class, you can discover things about them that make them particularly useful or powerful in a certain way that other characters aren't. So I think that there's a lot of kind of subtle depth in the game that hopefully players will discover if they spend some time experimenting.
I think that makes a lot of sense, and I think talk about a cool, unique feature kind of this game has, where like I think foundationally when people be like, oh, it's an RPG with extra classes, as we talk about, it goes like they go, oh, mage, knight, archer, like, oh, this fancy, like maybe we have a sorcerer, maybe we have this. Like instead, you guys took that foundation of those three and like put pieces on top of it instead of pieces next to it, which doesn't sound that different until in practice it really does.
Yeah. I think that's a pretty good way of putting it. And yeah, like the key thing is too that when players, because we've got so many heroes that you can discover, like there's 28 in the game. So the key thing is that when you find a new hero, and this is my hope. I don't know if it actually worked out this way, but my hope is that the player learns that they can't make too many assumptions about a hero they find. Like it's like, oh, okay, this guy's like a melee and he looks a bit strong and slow. Okay, cool. So I'll just assume I get how he's going to work. But if you actually like use them for a bit and sort of uncover what their abilities are, you might go, oh, I really like that this guy's got this novel thing about him that makes him not just different in terms of his sort of stats, but different sort of laterally as well, in terms of like there's a different sort of tone to how he works or something. So yeah, we've just tried to make it really interesting. And look, fun was always the driver as well. Like if I come up with an idea for a character, for a special move or a hero or whatever, it would just be like, just put it in. And if it kind of bends the rules of the games a bit, it's like that's okay, so long as it's coherent and the player can understand how it works. It's fine. I think more novelty and more interest is always a good thing for the player. More choice, more variety. The last thing you want is your game to become stale, and the player to get to a point where they go, oh yeah, I totally get this. This is just more of the same. You want to keep giving them something novel all the way through to keep feeding that interest and that stimulation in their brain.
I do like the thing of, so it's the thing that reminded me of it. I think it was the Sid Meier quote was that games just a linear line of interesting decisions, and I think that's very much it's the same idea you guys are kind of going with, and this one is, except the interesting decisions are figuring out the decisions that you guys made for the classes, and kind of really flipping that, not quite as head, but kind of changing that format out a lot. One of the other things is, when I was playing through it, the thing that really stuck to me about this game is you very much felt like, to me, and this is kind of a good way, is it reminds me of those RPGs where I just go, oh, I could just go grind in this RPG for a while and just level up and like get new classes, stuff like that. Kind of, was that kind of your goal in mind? Because as we talked about like the 90s, 2000s RPGs, I feel like, to me, with some exceptions, that's what's very strong about that era, is those are the RPGs that people just be like, I'm gonna go grind in this for X hours and go up my stats and make me more powerful and more stronger.
Yeah, we definitely wanted to give the player that some aspect of that, but we also wanted to limit it a bit because, like, we didn't want it to break obviously the difficulty curve of the game, or make it too. So that's kind of where the arenas came in. So I assume, did you get to a point where you found the arena, one of the arenas?
Yeah, I think I found the first one is probably a little bit after I
Yeah,
stopped playing.
yeah. So the arena only after, I think it's about 60 seconds. So you kind of have to like wait a little while or go and do something else and then come back. But yeah, so we did want to provide, if the player really is determined to grind, they can find a couple of arenas and just go, but like every overworld has 3 arenas. So and as you get into the game, the arenas have much more difficult creatures in them, which yield much more XP and all that sort of thing. So yeah, like, we wanted to put that element in. So if you're really determined sort of hardcore player, you can kind of get to a particular overworld and just cycle through the arenas constantly and ratchet up. But it does take time, and we sort of hope that there's enough. Again, it's you're always trying to strike a balance, that there's this tension between the player wanting to move the adventure on in the story and see what's next, rather than just grind away. So yeah, you can do that if you want, but that might diminish the experience later in the game because it becomes a little bit easier. But we appreciate some players like that kind of thing. They like to grind and they like to get their heroes boosted early and do that. So again, we just tried to strike a balance by providing that, but not making it too easy to just sit there and grind away.
Okay, yeah, no, I think that's fair and that makes a lot of sense. As we get to the tail end of the discussion, so as we're talking, you guys came out November 5th, or however you say it in Australia, because I'm probably saying it wrong there.
No, November 5th is fine, or
Okay.
5th November.
5th of November is kind of what I'm thinking. Whenever I hear people like in the rest of the world, they always do the like go day, month, year, and I'm always like, no, this is wrong. We do it correctly here. You're all just wrong.
Yeah, see, that's a funny thing, that, and I'm going to call you on that because we go. I always find that, like, and this is a sort of game developer in me, or part of my technical brain, but you should always go in sort of consistent order of resolutions. So like, day, month, year makes sense to us because you're going from the highest granularity to the lowest. Whereas, what do you guys do? You go month, day, year, right?
Yeah, we go month, day, year. Yeah.
That's just wacky. Like, what's that about?
What's next? You're gonna complain because we like measure in gallons and all that nonsense?
Oh, don't get me started. What the hell is a gallon? I think it's 4 liters or something. It's mental. No, look, that's fine. Well, that's fine. No, I love the States. I've been over many times, and I think it's a fantastic country. So no, I think idiosyncrasies are always great. Just makes it would be boring if we all did everything the same.
And we're America, so we get to say for everything basically. Look at the crazy rest of the world.
Exactly, exactly.
You guys have been out roughly 2 weeks from when we're talking.
Yeah.
I'm curious, kind of, how has the feedback been for the game compared to kind of what you guys thought it'd be like going into this?
Oh, we have very modest expectations. My business partner and I have been making games for a long time, so we're quite grounded about this sort of stuff. So look, feedback has been it's really interesting, and we've seen this before with stuff we've done in the past. The player feedback has been quite good. Like, I would say, anywhere from above average to sort of gushing. Like some players really love the game. Others have gone like, yeah, it's cool, enjoyed it, I'd recommend it, but they're not kind of like doing cartwheels. But the press feedback we've got so far hasn't been great. So there's a bit of a dichotomy there. Like the games media that we've with some of the feedback we've got already is some of it's been quite average, and I'm not really sure what to make of that. As someone who's been making sort of creative stuff for, I don't know, 20 years, you do kind of learn to not really listen to critical reviews too much. Like, it's much more important what the players are feeling and how, are they enjoying the game. I mean, at the end of the day, what you're trying to achieve, you're trying to give somebody an enjoyable experience. That's literally what your goal is. You want to make somebody happy while they're playing the thing you've built. So critics and journalists, you take it all with a huge grain of salt. So hopefully we're tracking in the right direction. The players seem to be enjoying the game to various extents. So look, it's good. We've engaged with a few players who have had some comments and some suggestions and all that, and we're considering what we're going to do. As a small indie team, you've got to be careful about how long you spend supporting a game, because it's not like a big studio where you can allocate staff and resources to kind of service a game for a year while everyone gets on with making the next blockbuster. As a two-man team, you've sort of got to look at the practicalities of how long you can service stuff and how many changes and how many patches you can do before you just kind of like, treading water. But we're going to try and do some things to improve the game over the next sort of couple of months, and make sure that if there are things that the players really don't like about it or would really enjoy having added, we're certainly going to try and do that. Like, for example, there's been some suggestions of like an endless battle mode where you sort of just go to a zone and, we can like randomly spawn a collection of monsters based on certain parameters. Like if you want, light, medium, hard, small, heavy, whatever, and just give players the opportunity to just sort of like battle over and over and over again. And, it seems like an obvious thing that we probably should have done, but, time is really precious when there's only two of you. So things like that, we might go back and add in. So I guess, in the short version, I guess we feel we're just starting the relationship with the players at this point in terms of what we're going to do. So we're looking forward to getting more feedback and more comments, and hopefully we can do something positive with that.
Perfect. So let's try to sell you a few more copies of this game. So the game,
oh hell yeah,
is Battle Hunters. It is available on just Steam?
No, it's on Nintendo Switch as well.
On Nintendo Switch, so Steam and Nintendo Switch. You guys are Phase 2 Games out of Melbourne, Australia. The game is currently, it's $15 US. I assume, is it the same on Switch, or do you have one of those Switch price things?
No, I think it will be within $1 or maybe 50 cents on Switch. I can't remember, but we've tried to price it as close as we can in all territories. Like Steam and Switch have different mechanisms for pricing, and you've got to go and manually adjust them all. But yeah, it'll be around the same price on Switch, absolutely. And it's a bargain.
It is a bargain. You advertise 15 hours. I can see it. So again, it's $1 an hour, folks. $1 an hour. That seems very doable. And if we play it twice, it's 50 cents an hour. Where do you get 50 cents an hour of entertainment? Well, perfect.
Amen, brother. I agree completely.
Perfect. Well, Dan, thank you for joining me. Is there any other spot I should send people to go check out the game or stuff about you guys?
No, well, they can always go to phase2games.com, but otherwise, yeah, just search for Battle Hunters on Nintendo Switch or Battle Hunters on Steam. We think it's a game that was made with a lot of passion, a lot of effort. We think it gives you a lot of entertainment for your buck. So hopefully people will check it out, enjoy it, and have a great time.
Again, and enjoy, I guess, the rest of your morning.
Thank you very much, Mike. It's been a pleasure.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a review of the SWW show. I'm here with Ahmad of Ausuf Studio.
Yeah, the name is Ahmad, and the studio is called Khusuf. It means eclipse in Arabic.
I mean, surprisingly, with Michigan being a rather large population of Arabics over the state, there's almost no interaction with anybody of immediate Middle Eastern descent. It's such a it's pretty white by where I am, so my
Well, now you got me, man. So
yeah,
like you can see,
yeah,
you got your first interaction.
yep. That's yeah. Maker of Shadow Dreams, a very interesting looking. Says here, first person shooter with strong emphasis on dealing with emotional. Thank you for joining the show, and
Thank you for having me.
it's pretty darn cool.
Glad you liked, man.
Yeah, so getting into it, like, what is, we're kind of talking about this beforehand, but the name Shadow Dreams, and I had to bring it up because I typed in Shadow into Steam, and it's about 15 things before you reach Shadow Dreams, but you told me that this name really means something to you. It's not just a name.
Yeah, it's not just like there for the cool factor of having shadow in it, which I know some people might think that is the case. But I don't want to trace too long ago in my history. But like back in 2010, 2011, my aim at that time was to be a full-time musician, and the genre of my band was progressive death metal at the time. And while I was composing that album, it was a one-man band thing as well. So like I learned the instruments, audio engineering, blah blah blah. So like the concept of doing everything on your own did not just come out of nowhere. It's been distilled in my personality for a long while. But anyway, the title of Shadow Dreams is that when I was composing that album, I'm not sure exactly what those dreams were exactly, but for the period of 4 years, I kept having constant dreams of shadows that approach me in certain ways, in certain senses. The dreams were extremely realistic. And some of those dreams inspired me and actually like even gave me the riffs to parts of the album. And that's why that name actually means something to me. And that's how like I transitioned it after making that album and trying to make it, and sadly didn't make it as a musician. I transformed that album into like, okay, let's make a game out of that album. Let's build on it. Let's make a brand out of
Yeah, it sounds like your game has got the start of the like the Norse mythology. Like all of their stuff is like it came to me in a like in it not not a vision the way that like Judeo-Christian things start, but there's this like, oh, I went to sleep and I had a dream and the dream told me this. Like that story is so cool. It's not, I mean it's really not a story that a lot of people have. Like people want to think that they have that. Like,
Yeah.
man, it came to me in a dream. Like, okay, no, it's probably your subconscious.
I agree. Yes.
Yeah.
But like the thing is like it was constant over 4 years. It wasn't just one or two. It just kept going. And that's why I decided like, okay, Shadow Dreams. And the name of the studio, which was the name of the band at the time, Khusuf, it means lunar eclipse. You know, when you get a blood moon sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I wanted the name for the band. And surprisingly, at the time, I just looked out the window and there was like the most beautiful blood moon. And I'm like, okay, Khusuf it is. And that's where the name of the band / the studio came from.
You don't believe in, like, I don't know, coincidence is the wrong word, but like if you don't believe in there being a higher power, like that story right there, like whatever the name of your higher power is, like there is something that just doesn't either
it feels empty, doesn't it? Right?
Either A, your higher power is called shrooms, or B, it's truly a higher power and something not just your subconscious that's
playing tricks on you, kind of.
Yeah.
Who knows, man? But I just honestly, I just went with the flow, and it was a very long journey to get to the point to where I am right now. Honestly speaking, it was not easy at all. Like, for example, like after I finished the album, I went and played it live, and like, okay, let's do it as a musician. But something broke me at that point, is that after the live show, I was extremely happy. I sold out the albums completely, sold out, about like 60, 70 copies, which was pretty big at the time for, like, back in Jordan. It wasn't here in the UAE. It was pretty big to do something like that. And what really broke me and what really diverted me away from the music scene is that after the show, the money for the album that we gained was stolen. And it was stolen by the organizers of the event.
It's usually how it happens.
Yep. Yep, they came to us like, you broke the drums and you gotta pay for it. I'm like, what the hell, man? What do you mean we broke the drums?
Always come up with something.
Yep, and the money went by, and that changed my perspective. So after that, I sadly had to, like, I succumbed to the reality of the situation that if I want to survive, I need to find a real job. So I graduated from civil engineering school at the time, the university, and I traveled here to Dubai, the UAE, to find a job in civil engineering. Like, I came like flat, like, you know how they say, like, flat out broke,
Yeah.
with nothing but my clothes. So yeah, I came here, found the job, and how to say it lightly, I absolutely hated my life in that job. Yeah, I know it was engineering, quote, quote, but the job was basically, I have to go to the construction site for about 10 hours a day, stay out in like searing temperatures, scream at people scream at me every single day. That was the job.
Hey,
So
here's an idea. How about you go stand out in the desert, tell somebody that they're doing it wrong, and they'll yell back at you, no, I'm doing it right. And yeah, do that for 10 hours a day, probably, 5 days a week, 6 days a week. Just realize
sounds like
that realize that this maybe isn't.
just maybe this isn't really the path, you know. So it came to me at the time that I needed to find a way out, like 100%. This is not gonna work out. I am not happy. I'm miserable. So at the time, thankfully, I got shifted into the night shift, which allowed me to have a bit more, me time, since everyone's asleep and I'm just working the graveyard shift in the construction site. And I took that time to, like, realize what is my next step. And thankfully, at the time, I was engaged to who is now the co-founder of the studio. She works with me in the studio, by the way. So she supported me in that push towards the right direction, you can say. So the concept of Shadow Dreams, I had to evolve it into something that uses my creativity and brings financial return. And music was not the path, sadly. So I decided
It's the path for very few people.
sadly, it's a typical 1% situation. So I decided to make a book, and then I realized that I'm not a very good writer. And then because I have zero experience in game development, so like I didn't even, honestly speaking, like, I don't mean to sound like that, but I had no idea that game development was even a thing, I hardly knew that it existed at the time. But what was there was app development. So I'm like, okay, how about I make this Shadow Dreams concept into an application game type of thing? Something like, a choice-based type of book, engaging, and that stuff. And one thing led to another, and my ambition got the best of me. And I kept expanding. I came by Unreal Engine, downloaded it, tried. I like the project that you see right now, Shadow Dreams, the game. I would say that 50% of that game was made this way. I go to work, I have my laptop, I put it into the drawer cabinet, I connect it to the monitor, and I work on the game like in super secret hush mode. And as soon as like a manager comes or anyone comes, like alt tab into some steel structural drawings. And like that was the life for about 4 years.
You're like, gotta figure out these nodes. Oh, manager. Okay, now this bolt right here, that needs half a second.
Yep.
And then left half a second. Oh, cool. Node needs to go right there.
Exactly. But now imagine that. Unreal Engine gets stuck. and someone is passing by. I'm like sweating my face off completely. So like that was a typical day in the life of me for the first 4 years of development, because I literally had zero background, so I was learning as I'm going. Like, just a little fun fact: the game that you're seeing, Shadow Dreams, is literally the first project I ever opened.
Well,
But
I
the
gotta tell
difference,
you, it just visually does not look like a first project. It
thank you, man, thank you. I'm glad you like it.
looks amazing.
Thank you very much.
Even taking out the fact that it's a project, even taking out the fact that I'm talking to you, like if somebody showed me the shots, like, hey, this is a game that's going to be coming out early next year, and this looks pretty cool. Like, I would say, probably a smaller studio, because it's not like you're not looking at it and going like, man, it looks like, take your pick for big shoot. It doesn't look like Destiny. It doesn't look like Halo.
Yeah.
Which is good. I mean, Destiny and Halo kind of look like the same thing. And then if you started telling me the story of, yeah, this is his first project, and it's a very small team, and you're like, I'd be like, no, like, this is not. I've seen enough first games to know that that would be my reaction.
I really appreciate it. You're very kind. In your good days.
Yeah, my good days, I try to be pretty nice, and my bad days, I'm just not going to talk to you, or expletives are coming out. I don't want to talk.
So, I can relate.
I do have to ask, because you are now in Dubai.
Actually, in Abu Dhabi.
Oh, you're in Abu Dhabi. Okay.
Yeah. So like, sorry to interrupt. Like, basically, what happened is, or you know what? Like, let's discuss it later. Continue.
Yeah. Well, I was just gonna ask, what is, to me, if somebody mentions the UAE, it's like, okay, this is opulence, right? Like, this is an area that 50 years ago were fishing villages, but now they're, 7-star hotels, and it's like
towers everywhere.
Yeah, it's buildings every 5 seconds. It's
Yep.
But what is, like, as a Westerner, like, to me, that city is just like, it doesn't look like anything truly happens there. Just building.
Yeah.
Like, so what is there a game scene? Like, there anything like, are there people that you can go to and be, hey, I'm stuck on this in Unreal. Do you have any idea?
Well, here's the thing. Like, every place has the good and the bad, obviously, and like the country as it is, the best way to describe it is, like, in my opinion, it's a land of opportunities. That's how I see it, at least. Like, if you work towards something, there is a place for you to make it in that industry, in that field, in whatever you're trying to do. It's not going to be easy, but as a growing economy, there is always a place for new ideas. There is always a place for new creative things that match the trends of the industry. So you may be right about the artificial image of it, but it is filled with a lot of good people. That fills with a lot of multicultural backgrounds. I'm not from here. I'm Palestinian with a Jordanian passport that came from somewhere else and then moved somewhere here. But in general, honestly speaking, I absolutely love it here. Honestly, I feel like it's a home. And coming back to your question, when it comes to the whole game development scene, the game development scene is, like, the best way to describe it, in the US, the game dev scene is a mature 30-year-old man, a 35, 40-year-old man with a nice family and a structure and relatives. That's the game dev scene right there. Here in the UAE, the game dev scene is a toddler. That's the best way to put it. It has a lot of potential, It's a very smart toddler, but it needs guidance. It needs someone to rise up and grab the hand of that toddler and just like push him in the right direction. It's still a very young industry, so no. Actually, if I go and like around and ask someone like, "Hey, I'm stuck here. What do I do?" That's extremely rare. Not for the reason that you think that there aren't developers. There are developers actually. Like I know at least 15, 20 developers at the moment, but almost all of them use Unity. The scene right here is much more focused around the mobile games. Like the indie scene is more interested in like smaller scale games, I would say, and mobile games, because from a business perspective, mobile games are a much more guaranteed way of success for a much lower overhead cost. While what I'm doing right now, like the game Shadow Dreams I've been working on for 5 years now, it is what they call business suicide. It's to not have any income for 5-6 years. Yeah, so it's not a very common approach for the industry that is still growing. But my aim, honestly speaking, is to change that view when it comes to our region. The view to our region is not really the best when it comes to developers, obviously. I admit it 100%. I have not seen like a decent title come out of here. I'm not speaking about mobile games. I'm speaking about like console, PC, and that type of stuff.
Right.
And I feel very hungry to be that person that breaks that norm. So let's see where it goes.
I gotta tell you, just from your drive that I've only been talking call it half an hour, but like your drive and your passion for it, that you're just like, we're on Zoom, we're like what, say 6,000 miles apart, something like that. Like
basically,
yeah, I can feel it. Like your drive is like there, like you're probably gonna be the one, at least the first one. But like it is really interesting when you say that, like even the Middle East in general, like there's nothing big that has come out. Like there's titles from South America that have come out, obviously Europe, the US, Asia, Australia, like every other scene, it seems like, has had a hit, like at least one hit, whereas the UAE and the Middle East, like, I mean, I'm not huge into mobile games, but I'm sure there's, if I went on, I could find some, but as you say, in terms of like full-fledged is the wrong word. Full-fledged games.
We don't want to sound like elitist and say like the true games are the non-mobile games. Yeah, I get what you mean.
Because I mean, like mobile games are full-fledged games. Like it's a fully fledged idea. So like that, it's weird to say, but that term is both the wrong term and the right term.
Yeah.
At least for me, of like, it's not a full-fledged. Like, the idea is fully fledged, but it's not a. It's got one mechanic, not.
It's limited by like a 3-inch screen, while we have now like VR headsets and controllers and haptic motion feedback. It is a full game, but it feels like a full game from the Stone Age. I think that's like the best way to describe it from my perspective.
Yeah, we've got these instead of. I'm holding up a. Listeners, I'm holding up my index controller. One of them. We've got those instead of
tapping on a screen. I'm sure I'm going to offend a lot of people at the moment.
I mean, it's the harsh reality. There are some amazing things done for touchscreens, but there's also a limiting factor.
It's like comparing a really nice bike to a Lamborghini. That's like the best way to put it. Like it's still a really nice bike, but like does it go as fast? Like in that sense.
Yeah. I mean, I know some. It's obviously on a magnitude way above, but there are some definitely nice road bikes that are like, hey, it's like $1,000, and like, man, I could probably buy like a really nice Toyota Corolla, and very few miles, and it's got a roof, it's comfortable, it's got heat.
Go homeless, like
yeah. You're like that's the thing, right? Like you could spend your $20,000 on a road bike and have the best bike possible. That's your mobile game, or you get a used Toyota, and that's a small scale PC game. Sometimes it's what do you want? Like, do you live in an environment that you could ride a bike all day? Then a bike. Do you live in an environment where you need a roof? I'll get the car.
Good point, man. Good point. Exactly. And like the I don't know. Like the thing with mobile games is that it's very business oriented. That's what I'm noticing right now, and that's why like I don't hate mobile games because like I'm an elitist and like no, the graphics are not good, the control or whatever. It is turning like the app store is turning into like just the flea market. You download it, you watch the 30-second app. You download this, you watch the app. You fall, you watch the app. The game design perspective, like right now, one of the things I do is I teach game design in a university here. So all of those principles that I teach, dump them in the trash if you're making a mobile game that aims to make a profit. It feels like you change the whole game design industry to match the concept of like how many ads can this person see.
That's the harsh reality of it's no longer the who was it? Infinity Blade, I think was the name of the game. On like the original iPhones. And it was like this fully I think it was either Crytek or themselves, but and it was this amazing looking thing. It was like $6. Everybody was like, "You're paying money for a phone game?
Mobile game? What?
How can you do that?" And then you realize this thing's awesome. And now you're not paying $6 for a game, you're paying $6 for a ad boost or a profit boost for your idle game, or you're paying $6 for currencies or something like that. Like,
see, like the problem is not paying for the game. The problem is that when you pay your money, you're not paying to get the game. You're paying to get your time back that you would waste watching ads, and that just breaks the whole balance. Like the yin yang is completely down at that moment.
well, and so let's get back to Shadow Dreams here, because I'm sure forever, but
Forever, yep.
you were talking to me earlier before we started recording, kind of what the idea behind in terms of like the gameplay mechanic of Shadow Dreams, and you mentioned a movie, Inside Out.
Yeah.
That I've seen it in passing, not much. I know the idea because previews for that were blasted on every channel in the States for 4 months because Disney movie and own all the channels. So you could do that. But yeah, you were telling me this idea, and it's interesting. Like it's not the cyclical nature of a game is something that emotions are tough to tie to. Like for me, like when I think of an emotional game, like a game that touched me emotionally, it was what was it? Probably 4 or 5 years ago now, but it was a game called That Dragon Cancer. It was like 2.5 hours long. You could maybe make it 3 hours if you stopped and checked everything. But it was a dad made a game about his kid cancer, and like it was a one shot. Like there was one path, telling the story, and like if you took a game, it's tough. A normal game of cycles of okay, you need to reach this point and then it's another level. Like that is tough to tie to hey, I'm telling this story about dealing with son having cancer, or dealing with losing a parent, or dealing with your culture being suppressed, or dealing, things like that. Like, again, normal games are tough to kind of fit that idea. But you were telling me like you're using the cyclical of a game to point across.
Yeah, like let's just say it again for the sake of the interview. But the concept of the game is that you enter the mind of a suicidal person. You, the player, are called the last thought of hope. That is you. The character in the game, it's a first-person shooter type of game. It's like, speaking of it gameplay-wise, it's like I mixed the games that I absolutely love, took the best of what I think is about them, and mixed them into Shadow Dreams. And those games are like Doom, Skyrim, and Dark Souls. That's where the game is heavily inspired gameplay-wise. And story-wise, you enter the mind of this person, the suicidal person, as the last thought of hope. The theory behind it, after I did my research, read books, spoke to people, and like personal experience, the concept is when someone goes through a tremendous amount of emotional trauma, losing someone, grief, depression, the stress of life, whatever you want to call it. That's why in the story of the game will not specify exactly what the issue is. I want the player to relate to what they're playing. So that's why I'm leaving the issue as a bit of a vaguish concept. So when someone goes through that tremendous amount of stress and they think about ending their own life, they're thinking about suicide, one last thought of hope enters their mind. And that's where you start the game. You are the last thought of hope to enter that mind. And if you succeed in the mission, the game, which I'll explain a little bit what the mission is, if you succeed, you give that world a second chance to improve. That world is the mind of the player, the mind of the person. And if you fail, it means that's it, and the world literally ends. The world that I'm referring to, the world is the mind of the person. So everything you see in the world of Shadow Dreams is the mind of the person you're in. And the people in there, the NPCs, the characters, the monsters, the environment itself represents that mind, represents emotions, represents thoughts. Like, for example, one of the, like, you will be born of, just to specify what are thoughts and what are they born of. Each thought is born of an emotion. That's the concept of the game. And each emotion is represented as an element. So there is the element of thunder, element of ice, fire, death, light, and lightning. 6 elements. And each element represents an emotion or an instinctive sort of desire or your subconscious or something like that. So you, as the last thought of hope, what is so special about you is that you have all the powers of all the elements. So it's a bit inspired by the Avatar as well, the animation. I love that one. So the concept of mastering all the elements at once, that is you, the last thought of hope. And for example, like, you are born of a very bad place. You are born in a place called the panic pit. That's like the lowest place of the mind. That's where the panic attacks come from. And that's where you are born. And as soon as you go out, you meet a character called Anxiety. And he is a thought born of anxiety. And anxiety relates to the Thunder Kingdom, which is the Bashan Kingdom. So the concept of that character is that when your passion, which is extremely powerful, just like thunder, for example, when that passion is suppressed, it turns into anxiety. And that just comes from my own perspective for when I was in the construction site and I can't do what I love doing. I can't play music, I can't learn guitar, I can't work on game dev. That passion was suppressed and it turned into anxiety, which led to many panic attacks in the construction site, which was not fun. And that's where the inspiration comes from for the Thunder Kingdom and Anxiety. And that's just one example. Like, we can talk about this for hours, but you get, this is the main idea of the game, the characters, and the weapons, which will be the emotions, the elements that you wield.
Also, I can't imagine having a construction site in my limited construction. If you're not paying attention, you're gonna have a very bad.
Yep, definitely. But it doesn't come at once. Like, there are warning signs: feeling lightheadedness, feeling extremely trapped, feeling like you can't breathe. And after a number of panic attacks, you kind of like know where this day is going. So it doesn't just happen out of nowhere.
My limited experience on construction, mainly like at most 4-story buildings. And knowing the construction projects that are going on in the Middle East, I don't know if you were going up in the buildings or not, but those are like 40-story buildings. And
it's not 4, definitely.
I would have a panic attack just being up there. I know fears are apparently irrational, but I have a fear of heights that I've had for my entire life. I don't know why.
Then this is not the field for you, man.
I know. But yeah, as I can only imagine. It has been a very good time talking to you. Extremely looking forward to Shadow Dreams out. It says here
Thank you,
April.
Oh man, 40 minutes have passed already. What?
Oh yeah.
Dang. That was quick, man. That was a fun chat, I guess. Time passes quickly when you enjoy what you're doing.
Yep, exactly. So in April of next year, I'm not going to hold you. At this point, I think everybody would understand play anything because
well, that is the delayed. Sadly, that is the delayed launch date. It was supposed to be launched this month. Yeah, but life has different plans. That's the least to say.
as I say, I think people, if there was ever a time to delay anything, movie, a book, a game, in a weird way, 2020 was the year to delay. Because everybody was just like, yeah, we understand. Like,
the COVID, yeah. It is what it is, man.
Like, it could be, oh, we just ran out of money. But if you just say, oh, we had to delay this, like, I would be like, okay. Yeah.
We expected that.
Understandable.
Nobody's angry.
Well, it was very good talking to you.
Thank you, man. It was nice meeting you as well.
This podcast was a production of the SWW Show. To learn more, go to theswwshow.com. Remember, you can follow the show on Twitter at the SWW Show. You can follow me at Mikey_Maroney. You can follow AJ at LowSeatBoy. Remember, new episodes premiere on Friday, 9 a.m. Central Time on anchor.fm/SWW and podcast services around the globe.